In the kavanah and in the spirit, of course there's a big difference. So that, but Moshe was explaining to him that Avodas Hashem is actually a combination. Nothing is extreme, nothing is eliminated. It is a perfect combination between the action and the spirit, and the intellect and the emotion. Like we learn in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains that a real mitzvah is a mitzvah that also has ahava v'yira, not just the deed, but a mitzvah. But there is the inspiration, and there is the ahavas Hashem and yiras Hashem that's connected to, that's in part of the mitzvah. This is what makes a mitzvah rise up and be a full mitzvah. As a result of the machlokes of Korach, this you did not learn yet this year. It'll come up soon. After the whole machlokes of Korach, you know that the earth split open and they were swallowed up and the whole thing. After that, there were a couple of things that took place. One thing is that Hashem told Moshe to ask that every Nosi, every head of the tribe, every head of the Shevet, should give Moshe a stick, a plain, dry stick. And on the stick he should write the name of his Shevet.
What's Shevet?
Tribe. Reuben, Shimon, Levi. Okay? And among the sticks, there should also be a stick that represents the Shevet Levi. There was 12 sticks altogether. And the Shevet Levi, and the stick on the Shevet Levi, you should write the name of Aharon. And these sticks you should bring in and put into Kodesh HaKadosh, into the Mishkan in Kodesh HaKadosh, where the Oren stands. And these sticks will teach the Eden, will tell the Eden everything about the fact that I chose Aaron, and that there is a difference between Koyanim and Levim and Israel and all that. Moshe Rabbeinu asked all the Eden to give them these sticks. He took these sticks and he brought them into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he left them there overnight. In the morning, Moshe went back to take them out. When he came in to take them, what did he see? That the stick that had Aaron's name on it, all the other sticks remained just the way they were. Plain, dried sticks. But the Aaron stick sprouted. It grew. Not the stick grew, it produced fruit. Almonds grew out from the stick. And this growth from the almonds, this, Hashem said to Moshe, this will prove to the Eden that I have chosen Aaron, and that nothing can change that choice. This will show the Eden clearly that Hashem chose Aaron and the Koyanim and so forth, the Levim and everything that Hashem set up is there to stay. Now, I want to discuss a little bit what happened with that stick and what the message that came from it. Moshe Rabbeinu earlier said to Korach that just as Hashem set up in a day, there is day and night. And each part of the day has its boundary. A certain part is day, a certain part is night. And there's no way that anybody can come and change this around. You cannot make night out of day, nor the other way. Why? Because Hashem has put this definition right there in the world. This is not something that you decide it's day now, you decide it's night now. It is in fact part of the reality of the creation. Day and night. Cannot change. In similar fashion, in the very like the same exact way, Hashem made certain distinctions in His world. There's a Jewish people, and then there is the rest of the world. The difference between Jewish people and the rest of the world is Hashem chose the Jewish people out of everybody else. This choice, it seems that superficially they look exactly the same as all other people. But that's not the case. Because this choice made a fundamental difference. And it cannot be blurred, it cannot be changed. A Yid will remain a Yid no matter what he does. There's no way he can change that. Just like he can't change day into night, he cannot change from a Yid into something that is not a Yid. Because the din is, in fact, if Rahman al-Islam, God forbid, a Yid, even converts, he still remains a Yid. And he's still obligated to do all the mitzvahs. There's no way he doesn't change. The similar thing is Hashem had set up within the Jewish people certain demarcations. So there is Kohanim, there's Levim, and there's Israelim, and there's no way that anybody can change that. In other words, this difference between Kohanim, Levim, Israelim, this is something which is really part of the nature of the Jewish people. And it cannot be changed. This principle that everything that Hashem had affected the Jewish people became part of the people and cannot be changed. This was shown in this miracle of the sticks. And I want to explain to you how the miracle of the sticks showed that. The sticks were plain dry sticks. And dry sticks do not produce fruit. Right? They can't grow fruit. On iron stick, there was a fruit growing out. An almond grew out. Or almonds grew out. So when almonds grow from a stick, and it's a miracle, which means Hashem put almonds onto the stick. The stick itself cannot grow it, because it's a stick. Hashem made a miracle and put almonds onto the stick. So then, it is obvious that the almonds are not growing in a natural way. They were just put there, made to be there. It's not natural, nothing natural about it. However, the Torah describes something very interesting. The Torah describes that how did these almonds grow out of the stick. It wasn't just almonds came out of the stick. The almonds grew out of the stick in a very natural and a gradual way, just like any tree. How does a tree produce a fruit? A fruit doesn't jump out of the tree. First, there's a bud. You know what a bud is? A little flower. Then this flower develops and it falls off, and underneath the flower there is a little beginning of a fruit, and then this fruit develops and grows up. So it's a natural process. This natural process is what took place on the stick. It wasn't just Hashem put fruit to the stick, but He made the stick itself grow fruit in a natural way. Like the Torah describes, there was a nets, there was a little flower, a bud and a flower, and then that fell off, and then a fruit developed, and then it grew up, all in a natural way. And the Torah describes this. When you learn this, you'll see the Torah describes exactly all the steps that it took before the almonds came out, to show that the almonds grew in a perfectly natural way from the stick. And what is the message in this? The message in this is that even though that a stick, that's a miracle that Hashem made the stick grow, but this miracle was not an external miracle, that Hashem just stuck the almonds to the stick. He actually changed the stick, that the stick should produce the fruit in a natural way. This is why it showed every step how the fruit was produced.
So he worked with a natural...
In a natural way. And the point of a natural way is to show that this actually changed, permeated. It went through and through and made the stick grow. Not that Hashem put fruit under the stick, but made the fruit stick itself grow. What's the message in this? The message in this is that when Hashem made Aaron a Kohen, he made the Kohen becomes through and through a Kohen. It's not something that was just added to him. He's just a plain person like everybody else. And then something was stuck to him. He became a Kohen or a lady. Or for that matter, a Yid became a Yid. Something was given to him, a title. It wasn't like that. It is something which permeates, which goes through and through and changes his whole nature, his whole mitzvahs. Through and through. Just like a stick. When it grows fruits, it grows the fruit like the Rebbe. It grows the fruit from itself, from the stick, not that the fruit was just put onto it. So that it should be understood that everything that a Yid has is not just stuck onto him, but it is something that is really part of him. So that coming back to the principle we said before, a Yid has to do mitzvahs, he has to act and do mitzvahs. What does it mean he has to do mitzvahs? He has to do mitzvahs, he has to act. But these mitzvahs become part of him. They come right out of his own soul, of his own intellect, of his own emotion.
What is part of?
Sorry? Part of him. Chelek mimenu. Te'eval tehakol? Rak zeh? It came just like this stick, all of a sudden started to sprout fruit, to grow fruit. Not the fruit was put into it, the stick itself became a fruit stick, producing fruit. The same thing, every change, everything that Hashem has given to a Yid, that gift went through and through to this person. The fly is going to be here later too. You understand? This was the message of the stick. And I said, it's related to the original answer that Moshe gave him. Yes, indeed, Maaseh hu Yid, you have to do deed, but the deed comes from inside the Yid. It involves the whole person. It's not just an external act. There's a story of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe, they came to arrest the Alter Rebbe. You know, the Alter Rebbe was arrested, I'm sure you know. So when they came to arrest the Alter Rebbe, they opened the door, and they saw the Alter Rebbe standing there with its tefillin on. They saw the Alter Rebbe with tefillin. These are gendarmes, these are police. They had their job from the government. They saw the Alter Rebbe in tefillin. They quickly jumped out, ran out of the room and closed the door. They let the Alter Rebbe finish that. And then later on, the Alter Rebbe explained what happened. Now this is actually what the Pasuk says. The Mishnah Gemara says, "V'ro kol amei ha'oretz kishem Hashem nikro alecha." All the nations of the world will see that Hashem's name is called upon you. Eilu tefillin sheberosh, this refers to tefillin sheberosh, tefillin that's on the head. V'yoru mimeko, and they would be feared, they will fear you, they will be scared of you. As I stated, that's what the pasuk says. Ro kol me'oret kishem Hashem nikro lecho v'yoru mimeko. They will see the tefillin sheberosh, they will fear you. And that's why they saw the tefillin, they had to run away. So then they asked the Alter Rebbe, but we see other cases, they don't get so scared. So how come from your tefillin they got so scared? So the Alter Rebbe said, the Gemara says, Zeyu tefillin sheberosh, this is a tefillin that's in the head. And the expression in the pasuk in the Gemara is tefillin sheberosh, the tefillin that are in the head, not the tefillin she'al horosh, tefillin that are on the head. You put tefillin on the head, and they don't become part of your head, it doesn't have that effect. But if the tefillin really represent what's doing in your head, then it has a completely different power. This was the Alter Rebbe's answer. In any case, the point is that when a Yid does a mitzvah, the mitzvah is not just an external action. You put tefillin on the head. You also have to have kavanah, you also have to understand, you have to learn, and you have to have Abba V'yira, you have to be involved in what you do. It becomes part of you. This is the real way to do mitzvahs. We spoke in the past, when we spoke about Matan Torah, I don't know how many of you would remember this. By Matan Torah, when Eden came to receive the Torah, it says that when did Hashem agree to give the Eden the Torah, what was the final step? The final step was when the Eden said, Nase v'nishma. Remember we discussed this? The Eden said, Nase v'nishma. Then Hashem said, now I can give him the Torah. And what's the meaning of Nase v'nishma? That Nase means we will do, v'nishma, and then we will understand. We will do and understand. In other words, first we will do without question. We'll do what you tell us to do. And then we will understand. In other words, what this is expressing is the fact that they didn't accept Hashem's command, and they do it because they were commanded, and then they will try to understand if they want to understand. This is the way it's normally understood. That this expresses their Kabbalah soil, what's called Kabbalah soil. They're accepting the yoke and the command from Hashem. The fact that they have also seichel, they have an intellect, and they have midas, they will do later. But the first thing is they accept what Hashem said. However, if you look in the Chumash, look carefully in the Chumash, you'll see an interesting thing. That before Eden said Nase v'nishma, it says earlier that Eden said Nase by itself, just Nase, without Nishma. When it said Nase, that's even more Kabbalah soil. We don't even need to understand at all. We'll just do what you tell us. We're not even going to question it ever. Not only that, it says twice in the Chumash that they said Nase. They said Nase twice without Nishma. And yet, this tremendous dedication that they said, Nase, we will do everything you say, was not good enough for them to receive the Torah. For Hashem to decide to give them the Torah. Nase by itself was not good enough. When did Hashem agree to give them the Torah? When they said, Nase v'nishma. Huh? They said Nase and Nishma. Nase by itself wasn't good enough. What's wrong with Nase? They will do it. That's all. They just accept what you told them to do. And what's the explanation? Why was it necessary? Why was Nasa by itself not good enough? It's the biggest level of dedication. The answer is that Hashem did not make Torah mitzvahs just so that they be performed, they be done. Torah mitzvahs are meant to change the world, to affect the world. That it should go through and through in the world, become part of the world. And the only way that it can become part of the world is if the world later on understands what the mitzvah is about. And if you don't understand, then the mitzvah and the person is two separate things. It's like the almond stuck to the stick. It's not part of the stick, it's stuck to the stick. But Torah mitzvahs are supposed to permeate. Permeate means dig through and through and change the whole fabric of the world and become, so the world becomes a godly world. This is why Hashem waited with giving Eden the Torah until they said Nasa v'nishma. Not just Nasa, we will do and then afterwards we'll understand. The big thing about Nasa v'nishma is that they said Nasa before Nishma. And what's so great about Nasa before Nishma? What's the difference if you do Nishma first and then Nasa? The big difference about Nasa before Nishma is, and this is what made Eden gave Eden the Torah, that Eden understood and realized that to understand Hashem's mitzvahs, it's impossible with the human mind. The human mind cannot understand Hashem's mitzvahs. So therefore, if we approach the Torah by our understanding, there's no way we can possibly fully appreciate and recognize the power of the mitzvah. And then go and do it and have the effect. Because it becomes just human understanding, human intellect, which has a very limited capacity, very limited power. The only way to get the full impact of the mitzvah is to accept it first from Hashem the way Hashem gave it. That's Nas. Then you accept the whole gift from Hashem, the mitzvah. Then afterwards you can begin to understand what's in that gift. What did Hashem give me? This is why the Nasa has to come before the Nishma. In order that the Nishma should be fully, the understanding should be complete, it has to be preceded. It has to come first the Nasa so that you accept, you receive the whole thing. And then you go, then you're able to attempt to understand it. And this is exactly what took place over there in this, the whole debate between Moshe and Korach. Korach says that if you have to have deed is enough. Moshe Rabbeinu said that it's not true. Deed by itself is not enough. The deed has to be then afterwards affected and infected into the mind, into the intellect, so that the whole person becomes part of the mitzvah, and the mitzvah becomes part of the person. This is a very important message for us when we learn in yeshiva bichlal. And in yeshiva, there is always a demand, a requirement that one should do the mitzvahs and should learn and daven because that's what you're supposed to do. Which is absolutely correct. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do all the mitzvahs. You're supposed to learn and daven. But after that one accepts and does what he is supposed to do, then he has to begin to open up his own mind and to make every attempt to understand the Torah that he learns and the mitzvah that he does with his own mind, his own intellect. This is when he becomes, when the mitzvahs become really part of the person. I mentioned it here, and I mentioned it to any time, when I speak to Baal Tshuva, that a Baal Tshuva has to understand that a Baal Tshuva goes through a very big change in his life. First, before his Tshuva, he could eat anything. Now he cannot eat everything. He has to eat only kosher food. He can do anything, anytime. Shabbos, he can't do anything. And even in the weekday, there are certain things you're allowed to do, certain things you're not allowed to do. It's a whole restriction. And the person takes upon himself, and he does all these changes, except Shabbos and kashrus and all other mitzvahs, tefillin, davening, and so forth. And then it seems he accepted everything and he practiced everything. Now he's a full-fledged Baal Tshuva. So the truth is, indeed, yes, he's a full-fledged Baal Tshuva. He joined the ranks and he's doing everything right. But he has to understand that to do everything, this is the first step. This is the nasa. This is the easy part of Tshuva. Then it comes the more difficult part of Tshuva. The nishma, where this Torah that he learned, and the davening that he does, and the mitzvah that he does, have to become part of his whole psyche. It has to become part of his intellect, part of his emotion. It's a change, not just in how you act, but in change who you are. How you understand the world. How you understand life. That's it. This part of tshuva is much, much more difficult than the first part. The nasa is only a stepping stone. You know what a stepping stone is? It's just a step that helps you to come to the nishma. But ultimately, one has to understand that even if you do everything perfectly, it is still only on the surface, because Yiddishkeit is something that permeates the whole person. It becomes part of the person. Just like the stick that produced these almonds, it was the stick that became producing almonds. Not the almonds were put on it, but the stick produced almonds. The same thing, a Yid, his neshama becomes vibrant. The neshama wakes up. His seichel understands godliness. His seichel thinks along the lines of Torah, so that he eliminates all kinds of different and worldly natures from his personality. He doesn't get angry that quickly like he did in the past. He is not so particular he's not so egoistic and egotistic, and all kinds of different natures that are in the world is full. He has to wash away. He has to become his whole life has to become part of Torah, part of Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit has to permeate him. This is representative of the Nasa and Nishma. This is representative of the debate between Moshe and Korach. And this was represented with this stick of the almonds. That Hashem made the stick produce almonds. Not that the almonds should grow on it, but the stick itself should produce. This is what happens, what a Yid is. I see that everybody is quite tired.
I'm not tired.
You're not tired? That's for you.
They make me get 8 hours of sleep.
Huh?
So, I mean, isn't it when a Jew's learning Torah that this is a natural process that he'll make these changes, or he has to make these changes in addition to learning Torah, or they come together?
Learning Torah itself can also be at the level of Nasa. What does that mean? He learns what it says. He opens up a book and he learns, oh, that's what it says. Okay, I know what it says. But that's not real learning. Learning is that his own mind understand, accept, and your mind can relate to what it says. Not that I know what it says. I can repeat what it says.
Implement it in your own life.
Yeah, his mind begins to think along the lines of what it says in the Torah. What he's learning. That is a long-term avodah. This is not something that comes easy. And as I said, this is a lifelong effort. To learn how to put on tefillin, how long does it take? In a week's time, they become an expert. But the tefillin should become something part of your mind and heart. And that represent Kabbalah soil, represent that your heart is warmed up by tefillin, warmed up to do Avodas Hashem. Your mind is dedicated to understand Torah. That's a whole lot, a whole different thing. It's a lifelong effort.
So is this like Avodas and Nishanis as opposed to Avodas?
Sorry?
Is this what you're saying is basically Avodas and Nishanis as opposed to Avodas Habir? Habir.
All Avodas can be bechitzonius and can be bepnimis.
Yeah.
Even Nisyonis can be bepnimis and bechitzonius.
How could it be Bechutzanis?
I once heard the following episode. The Mendel Futterfass. You heard the Mendel Futterfass? Everybody heard about it?
Yeah.
Mendel Futterfass, I once heard him tell the following story. That Rashi, his grandson, Rashi had a grandson, has a couple of grandsons. The Bala had Tosfos, the Rabbi Tam and the Ri and the Rashbam were Rashi's grandsons. So one of his grandsons was sitting on his lap. He was a little boy. And he asked Rashi the question. When he asked him, he said that in the Akedah, you know what Akedah is? When Abraham took Yitzchok to the Mizbeach. So it says that after Abraham saw, he separated from the donkey and from the other people on the third day, and Abraham was walking along with Yitzchok. It says, "Vayelchu shneim yachdov." They both walked together, yachdov, like one. So Rashi right away comments, what is the meaning "Vayelchu shneim yachdov"? They walked together. What does Rashi say? That Abraham, who knew what he is going to do, he's going to shech Yitzchok. Yitzchok didn't know the first thing what's going on. Didn't know what they're going to do. So Yitzchok for sure was going with full joy. He was going to do something great. Abraham is taking him. He had no idea what's demanded, what to expect. Abraham knew what it's about. And yet, Abraham and Yitzchok were in the same frame of mind, exactly with the same joy. Abraham is going to shech Yitzchok. Yitzchok is going to do some avodas Hashem. And they're both exactly the same frame of mind, the same level of joy. Then Yitzchok asked Abraham, my father, where is the sheep for the korban? Abraham said, the sheep for the korban is my son. So now Yitzchok found out what's going on. So you would think that Yitzchok would take him back. Says no. We walked together. Yitzchok found out, and he was in the same joy like Abraham was before. Nothing changed. Yitzchok and Abraham were walking out together with the same level of joy and mindset, frame of mind. And all this Rashi explains. Then afterwards, they came to the place. Avram built the Mizbeach, and Avram put together the wood, and Avram tied Yitzchak and put him on the Mizbeach, and he took the knife in his hand, ready to shech Yitzchak. At that moment, he was stopped, and he took Yitzchak off the Mizbeach, and he put a ram on the Mizbeach, and the whole thing, the Akedah, this is what happened in the Akedah. Tremendous Avodah. And then they got all the brachas from Hashem, all kinds of different things. After they finished this whole thing, the Torah says, about Yoshev Avraham el Ne'orav. Avram returned to his lads. He turned back to Yitzchak, to Yishmael and Eliezer that they left back by the donkey. Avram returned back to them. He finished what he did over here, and he returned back to them. And what did it say over there? Vayokumu, vayilchu yachdov. They got up and they went yachdov. All of them. Shmuel and Eliezer and Avram, they all went together, yachdov together. So, Rashi's grandson asked Rashi, this yachdov you don't explain. You explain the other two Yagdav. This Yagdav you don't explain. What's the pshat in this Yagdav? So Rashi says to him, this Yagdav is very simple. The Torah is telling us that Avraham and Yitzchak, who went through a world-shattering experience, that lasts for all times, forever. Yishmael and Eliezer, who was sitting and watching the donkey, who had absolutely no experience whatsoever. The worst experience was that they were a little bored, but nothing more. They didn't experience anything. And yet, when they were now going on their journey, returning home, you couldn't tell the difference between Yishmael and Eliezer and Avram. Avram did not show any kind of elation, any kind of accomplishment, any kind of tremendous experience. He did his thing. Avodas Hashem, it permeated, it went through and through his whole person. This is what he is. You couldn't tell the difference between his experience, what transpired on him, versus what transpired on Yishmael and Eliezer. In other words, it's possible to be otherwise. You go through a Nisayan, but you feel you went through a Nisayan.
Oh, so the proper avodah is not even feeling one from
My God, you do Avodas Hashem, way beyond. That's, in other words, it's their own
so
madrigas.
there's something higher than avodas Nishanis.
That's right.
It's a Nisayon.
That's right. I'm saying Nisayan is a test. The point is, there are madrigas in everything. You understand? I just pointed out that there are even, it's not something that can be defined. Avodas Nisayan, Avodas Abirurim. The idea is that it's avoided, that is completely dedicated to Avodas Hashem. Each one according to his level. You understand? There are many different levels. But the point is that it has to be dedicated and it has to be one with the person. Just like the stick that produced almonds. A Yid has to produce mitzvahs. You understand? Again, this takes a whole avodah. This doesn't happen overnight, and this is something, it's a lifelong effort. But it has to be understood that it does not stop at just learning how to do what we have to do. A Yid, you have to learn, it's a lifetime effort, and everything that you learn has to be taken in personally, has to be understood, has to be understood with your own mind, not with somebody else's mind. It's not enough to say, oh, Rashi understands it, it's good enough for me. No, you have to understand. When we were in yeshiva, Bochrim, and we were tested on the Gemara.
How does Mendel Fruiter first take place?
When we were testing the Gemara, so they would ask us a question, and we say, oh, Rashi says such and such. So we ask him, so how come Rashi says that? What do you mean? Rashi says it? No. You trust Rashi? Where does Rashi take it? How come Rashi says that? Where is the raya? Where is the proof from the Gemara that that's so? It's not enough that Rashi says it. You have to have a base. Understanding Rashi means you know not only what Rashi says, but how come he says that. Where is the proof in the Gemara? So this is the similar thing, that understanding Nasa v'nishma. You can learn Torah. You can learn Torah at the level of Nasa. You can commit a lot of Torah to your memory, and you can repeat it, but you don't know what you learned. You didn't really try to make sense of it. That's not learning. It's learning, but at the level of Nasa. But the level of Nishma is when it makes sense to you personally. And this is what is necessary. This was the machlokes with Korach, Moshe and Korach. And this was the lesson that ultimately came out of that machlokes. Again, that a Yid is a Yid through and through. And that complete integration of Torah into the Yid is a lifelong effort. It's not something you can graduate from that. It's a lifelong effort. And one can learn, and then all of a sudden he wakes up in the morning, one morning he says, wow, I'm still thinking lahav like a goy in certain things. I'm shocked. Don't be shocked. Still have to learn everything. But it has to be attended to. You have to actually understand how Torah thinks of things and how a Yid is supposed to think of things. The principle, for instance, of v'ahavto l'reyacho kamoicha. So everybody knows you have to be nice to your friend. You have to be nice to your neighbor. But the Torah says that this principle, you have to be nice to your neighbor, goes to such a depth that you don't know the difference between yourself and your neighbor. Kamoicha. This is something which is a completely different viewpoint, completely different understanding of being nice to your neighbor. To say please and thank you is one thing, but to really be concerned about someone else, about someone else's welfare, to really rejoice with someone else's joy and feel for somebody else's sadness, that's a different story altogether. But this is what Yiddishkeit is. It's what Torah demands. All this is absolutely possible for every Yid. It's possible to absorb Torah more, the principles of Yiddishkeit more and more. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not as quick as learning how to put on tefillin. Not even as quick as learning how to keep Shabbos. It's much more difficult. But this is ultimately what we are aiming for. And every Yid has to know that we'll never finish, we'll never complete. We have to continue to work on ourselves, refine ourselves, even if I do everything perfectly. We have to refine ourselves, become more sensitive to Torah thoughts, to the ideas that we learn, to Chassidus. All that is absolutely necessary. This is part of Torah. This is part of the guarantee that we gave them Abba Hashem when He gave us a Torah. He said, Na'aseh v'nishma. And that's a contract. It's part of the contract. That we're not just going to do and then say goodbye. We're going to do and then absorb it. This is what we start over here in the yeshiva, and then we continue on for a lifetime. And the mitzvah shall be imparted to our children, and our children give it over to their children, and we all go meet Moshiach with this.
Amen.
Amen.
No, but I don't sleep in your classes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major improvement.
That's right. You're good. You're good.